Be sure to check out my streams on twitch.tv/Kahools for more clips like the ones that made this video possible.
Nice.
For just under a year, I've been playing League of Legends, and it's safe to say that it's been nothing less than an experience. It's taken over my free time as well as some of my bank account, and recently, after starting my Twitch channel back up, I've naturally been wanting to play it on stream. Sadly though, I've been at odds with my viewers who don't seem to really enjoy it. Most of the complaints come from the fact that they don't understand what's going on in the game, and to be fair, I can't blame them because I also wouldn't want to watch a Twitch stream of a game I don't understand, unless it's somebody that I really liked. I couldn't justify continuing to play League on stream while no one knew what was going on, but I also couldn't let go of playing it because it's just so much fun. So I decided that the best way to get people to understand the game was to explain it myself. Hopefully, I can get some people to try the game even if it's only casually. Even if they don't end up playing it, hopefully this video serves as a decent overview for them to understand it. Before I get into any of the explanation, I should first start off with a short introduction to the game itself. League is a top-down 5v5 MOBA with various characters that all have different abilities. MOBA is a genre that stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena, which doesn't really mean much considering League is really the only MOBA people pay attention to. Might as well just have its own name, like this. Basically, MOBA means that there's players on each team and they fight in lanes, trying to get to the enemy's base and destroy it in some way. Now if that sales pitch didn't sell you, this one surely will. It's free. Just like every other great game that's managed to stay alive during the last decade, like CSGO, PUBG, and the other forbidden battle royale game that I am not going to mention. Now it's simple to just say it's free to play, so why not give it a try? But there's more than that. Because it doesn't cost anything to play, if you decide to put down the game, then you won't feel like you've really lost anything. Yes, I am aware that you can waste hundreds of dollars on skins and chromas like I have, but you can also get skins just by playing the game, which is what I also did for quite some time. It is slow and buying RP expedites the acquisitions of skins exponentially, but then again the game is free, so you can only have one. But surely being free to play isn't the only reason to play, or else I might as well just tell you why you should spend your time breathing because it's just as free. League has been around since October of 2009, so it's had lots of time to grow, change, and build a strong community of people who enjoy throwing every single game they're put into. Aside from the rather vocal community League has garnered, it's also home to 155 champions, with the newest one, Gwen, having just been released. The characters in League cover a wide range of playstyles, from huge tanks who soak up damage to sneaky assassins who can quickly remove targets from the game, and everything in between, including an armadillo. I think. No one really knows what Rammus is. And even more, there are a bunch of different game modes to play. The two most common modes are Blind and Draft Pick, both of which are on Summoner's Rift. Blind Pick is where people rush into the lobby and compete to see who has the highest typing speed to lock in a position. Draft lets you search for specific positions and gives each player on both teams a ban for one character each. There are two ranked modes for Summoner's Rift, one for solo and duo queue, and one for flex queue, which is all team sizes except for 4. I don't know why they chose 4. It's probably so because with 1, don't worry about it. Just you can't have 4. Additionally, there's ARAM, which is, for what I'm told, hard-stuck silver losers who can't take the stress of ranked. Riot also has a rotating arcade mode that goes between Ultra Rapid Fire, URF, One for All, and Nexus Blitz, my personal favorite. These are all casual game modes that you can play if you don't feel like being locked into a game for 30 plus minutes, although there is only one arcade mode active at a time. Right now it is One for All, which is where everybody picks a character, or they vote, like democracy, and then this definitely isn't going in the video. There's even a super competitive mode called Clash. Every other weekend, Riot lets players form a group of up to 5 people to compete in a tournament in a game for rewards. What? Riot lets players form a group of up to 5? For in-game rewards. I should review these before I read. And even if you don't have friends, don't worry. You can always sign up as a free agent and hopefully get drafted to the New England Patriots of the casual League of Legends teams. Although it's not very likely, even though their mid laner probably thinks he's the Tom Brady of esports. With multiple modes in League combined with the extensive list of characters, there's a lot to learn. The skill curve of the game resembles more of a wall than a curve, and I've made a little infographic here that I put on screen for you to visualize. One thing you'll hear a lot with League is that no two games are the same. Matchups, teams, objectives, builds, and rooms can all vary from game to game. And I'm sure to some it sounds scary and intimidating, but to others it might sound interesting and compelling. I personally like learning strategies and trying to apply them in different games, which is why I went for an applied science degree despite an associate's in science having better work prospects. Even if you're interested in playing but are intimidated by the vast amount of knowledge you need to play, there's tons of content on YouTube and Twitch of people teaching the game, giving tips, as well as pro games. Just by watching people play at a high level oftentimes can help open your eyes to new strategies and playstyles that you might have only thought of hundreds of hours into the game. I like to think of watching pro esports like watching professional sports and then taking those skills you saw and then trying them out in practice. Maybe this is just me trying to get the feeling of when I was younger and played soccer, and maybe I need to talk to a therapist, but I still think it's a very solid point nonetheless. That being said, I'm sure there are people who just think that there's too much to learn, and I think that's fine because the game isn't for everyone. League can be a very toxic place filled with people whose mindset just doesn't make sense most of the time. It's also an extremely punishing game when you're starting to learn it. League is very much like Modern Warfare 2 in the sense that everything is overpowered, which is what makes it balanced. But if you don't know what certain characters are capable of, you might feel like you're at a huge disadvantage. And you totally are, but that's only because you don't know everything your character can do. I should put a disclaimer out there before I start getting into how to play the game. I'm not going to be going super in depth into each role or discussing any advanced topics like wave management or trading in top lane, because I'm just not that good. This is just going to be for people who are new to the game or just want an understanding of the basics of what's going on. So please don't yell at me for not having Tyler 1's big 5-head brain. Now I want to get into the gameplay, and the best way to explain it is to divide it into 3 sections so that it's easy to understand: the map, the roles, and the phases. The map is fairly straightforward. 3 lanes, 4 jungle areas, and a river. The top lane, as you might guess, goes across the top of the map and runs down the left-hand side. The mid lane cuts through the middle of the map, going from the bottom left to the top right from each team's base. And just as Newton's third law of motion, for each lane there is an equal yet opposite lane. The bottom lane goes across the bottom and up the right side of the map. In between each lanes are 2 sections of the jungle, mirrored on either side, making 4 total sections. There's also a river that runs perpendicular to the mid lane and cuts the map in half, holds 2 pits, one on the bottom side for the Dragon and one on the top side for Rift Herald and the Baron Nashor. Each team gets 11 turrets, 3 inhibitors, and 1 nexus they must protect or they lose. I ran through that a little quickly, but you kind of get used to it once you play it or see it a couple times, so it's not super important to memorize all that. Now you can't have lanes without players. I'm going to go in the same order I listed the lanes in before because I'm an absolute sucker for parallel writing. The top lane is home to the big dogs, strong tanks and self-sufficient fighters. It's like a fight between 2 wolves vying for the spot as alpha male. Because most of the characters that play in top lane are tanks, once they get built up and have some items, they become a real threat later in the game, even turning into raid bosses sometimes like Darius, Urgot, and Nasus. The fights in top lane go kind of like a playground fight where you run up, flick your friend in the forehead, and then run away. Top laners are so thick it's hard to quickly run down their health, so you have to have a couple scraps to deal some damage and slowly whittle down their health until you can finally run in and finish them off. Good example of a tank top laner is Set, one of my favorite characters. Set stores up the damage he takes as grit and then can expend his built up grit to gain a big shield that allows him to take more damage. In essence, the more damage he takes, the more damage he can take. It's simple and straightforward if you think about it, and makes sense if you don't. Now the mid lane wouldn't be the mid lane without some mid laners. Normally, 2 types of characters play in the mid lane, either AD assassins with high mobility or AP mages that have good crowd control. By the way, I should clarify what AD and AP are. AD is physical damage and AP is magical damage. Doesn't really mean much outside of there just being 2 different types of damage. Might as well just call it orange and blue damage. So the objective of mid laners is actually to roam around from where they're supposed to be and help kill enemies in other lanes when they have the opportunity. Assassins can jump targets and quickly burst down their health, while mages look more to inhibit enemies' movement to either kill them themselves or help other people get the kill. Mid lane fights go just about the complete opposite way that top lane fights go. Both assassins and mages have abilities that deal lots of damage in a very short amount of time, so I'm sure you can understand how these fights would play out. They're short and deal lots of damage. In the event that you don't kill the enemy laner with 1 rotation of your abilities, you will more than likely be able to do it in the next one. In the event that you don't kill them on the second rotation, I don't know what to tell you. Get good, I guess. Talon's ability to jump over walls fits perfectly into the mid lane, allowing him to roam to other lanes through the jungle and avoid being seen by enemy wards.
Her at half health.
Thank you, Lexi. His abilities also deal a lot of damage when cast in quick succession with each other, allowing him to just burst targets down. Twisted Fate's ultimate lets him see everyone on the enemy team for a short period of time, and then he can teleport far distances. Along with his gold card ability that stuns enemy champions, he's a perfect example of a mage mid laner that can catch enemies out and punish them. Now the bottom lane is actually comprised of two different players, the AD carry and the support. The AD carry is pretty much exactly what its name implies if you've been paying attention. They do mostly physical damage, which is the AD part of their name, and they have the potential to carry their team, which is the carry part. I don't think I need to explain that. Even though the ADCs have the potential to carry the game, the early game is quite weak since their main source of damage comes from their auto attacks instead of spells. Although there are some ADCs who mix in spells along with their basic attacks like Ezreal and Lucian, most of them do rely on their basic attacks. Jinx and Draven are auto attack focused characters that have abilities that help them either do more damage or hit more attacks. Draven can give himself attack speed and empower his axes to spin, while Jinx can catch enemies in her traps or slow them so that they can't get away. Despite the high damage ADCs put out, they are quite squishy and need to make sure that they are not in a position to get killed easily. If only there was some big strong man that was there to protect the small and frail ADC. Just between you and me, because I don't think many players know this is where the support comes into play. Supports have many different playstyles, but their objective is always the same: keep the ADC alive. There are three main categories that supports fall into: tanks, enchanters, and utility. You can definitely argue that there's more categories or less, but just for understanding the game, 3 I think is perfectly fine. Tanks, like the tanks in top lane, are tanky, but the support tanks often come with some sort of crowd control. The big supports like Nautilus, Thresh, and Blitzcrank all have hooks that catch the enemy ADC out of position. Enchanters are your more conventional supports that heal and empower their ADC to do more damage. Lulu and Soraka are both common enchanter supports that can heal their team with ultimates that complement that. Lulu can make an allied giant, giving them health and knocking up surrounding enemies, and Soraka gets a team-wide heal that heals no matter where your allies are. Lastly are the utility supports, which are probably the most disliked characters in the game. They don't tank a lot of damage, but they do possess lots of crowd control. I think Pyke and Zilean are good examples of these supports, both having crowd control and abilities that help their ADC. Pyke has a hook and stun, but also his ultimate kills an enemy and splits the money of that kill with him and his ADC. Zilean can speed up his allies or slow down enemies while also being able to resurrect his allies with his ult. Now, all these positions can have different characters than the types I just listed because League is a game based around evolving strategies and being able to test out different theories. This is shown by Galio, a tank, being a mid laner, more squishy mid lane characters like Akali, Yasuo, and Ryze playing in the top lane, mages like Veigar and Cassiopeia being able to be played as ADCs, junglers like Talia and Fiddlesticks playing as support, and fucking Shaco support. God, I hate Shaco support. Nothing embodies this diversity like the jungle does, which is why I saved it for last. The jungle is home to probably the widest variety of characters, with assassins, tanks, mages, fighters, and supports now, I guess, because why not? The most popular junglers right now are the ones that can move fast. Too fast if you ask most players. But getting back to my point, I can't really explain the types of characters that typically jungle because you can have tanks like Zac and Sejuani who can take a lot of damage but also have lots of crowd control, and also assassins with high damage and mobility like Kayn and Kha'Zix who are good at singling out enemies. That's not to say that junglers don't have a particular goal though: ganking. A funny sounding word that means, according to Google, to kill a less experienced opponent, but really just means going into another player's lane to outnumber the enemy and kill them. They also farm the camps of little animals and rocks between the lanes, but that gets into CSing, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The best way to think of junglers is more of a map-wide support rather than the type of support that just sits with the ADC. They help other players get kills and provide pressure while also fighting for map-wide objectives that help their team. Apparently, great things come in 3 because I'm dividing the phases of the game into 3 as well: the laning phase, the mid game, and the late game. The first phase is the laning phase, where laners kill minions that walk down their lanes for gold and XP, and like I mentioned before, the junglers kill the camps between the lanes. I should clarify that you kill the enemy minions. Don't go trying to kill yours, that's a different game, and I'm not talking about that game for a specific reason. The gold can be spent to buy the ever so glorious items that I mentioned before, And now you might be asking, why would I want to kill the minions outside of getting items? But you probably aren't, because a shopping spree in a video game was enough to convince you. If you don't kill the enemy minions and they kill yours, the minions push towards your turret and can eventually kill it. I say eventually because they aren't that strong unless you know how to slow push, but again, that's getting into the advanced mechanics I promised I wouldn't talk about. The mid game is usually after 14 minutes when turret plating falls and when laners drift off from their lanes to start grouping together for team fights. Most of these team fights are crucial to not only showing the other team that your package is bigger than their millimeter Peter, but also to get objectives that give your team a buff or destroying the towers that your 8-3 top laner somehow couldn't get rid of. Lastly is the late game. This one is pretty quick because it's where the teams are looking to end the game. This phase can come early if your team is trying to surrender at 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey Zach, have you ever just wanted to play a game of League of Legends? Like one full game as the characters you picked?
Just play Valorant.
But if the game isn't full of dirty throwers, the end game usually comes around 30 to 35 minutes after you've taken some of the objectives and are close to having a full inventory. Or, if you're like me, when you just finished your second item.
Don't worry guys, it's 35 minutes into the game and I just finished my second item. Let's go.
I'm sorry.
This point can always come earlier if one of the teams has a lot of momentum and the other team just can't stop them. And as all the other parts of this headache of a game are, it's not set in stone, can easily change, because just like the English language, every rule has at least 3 exceptions. So none of this really matters, and you should get into a League game, type in /mute all into the chat, and do whatever you want, because nobody can hurt you if you can't hear them screaming.
He roots me so fast, his cooldowns are like non-existent.